If you cannot make heads or tails of growing wealth, you are not alone. It is Financial Literacy Month, and today we're diving into all things credit. We have President and CEO of Moneywise Wealth Management, Sherod Waite, again here with us today to help us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming in.
Good being here.
So what can you tell us about credit? Let's just start basic. What is credit?
Credit is you're essentially borrowing money, and with the expectations you're going to pay it back later.
Okay.
The problem with credit isn't credit itself; it's usually the type of credit.
Okay.
Most people get themselves in trouble with credit cards,
right,
and consumer debt. There's bad credit and there's good credit. Bad credit would be high interest rate credit, like credit cards, payday loans. Good credit could be something like a mortgage. It's lower interest rate, or borrowing for education where you're going to earn more money.
Right.
So there's good credit and bad credit.
That's one thing my parents always told me when I was going to go live alone. They said, do not open a credit card and overspend and start off on a bad note. So definitely important to keep that in mind. How does this tie into credit scores? Why should people care about that?
Your credit score will determine how much it is that you pay for that credit. That's the way that the lender determines your capability of paying back the loan. The higher the credit score, the better off you are, the cheaper it is. So you want a high credit score. And the most important thing about a credit score is that you make those payments.
Okay.
Don't be late. That's the worst thing that could happen to your credit, is being late.
So how do you fix a low credit score? If you are late and things happen, how can you come back from that?
You got to get back on track. Usually when people get themselves in credit trouble, it's not a math problem. It's usually a behavior problem.
Okay.
So people need to recognize that they're spending more than they're earning. So you got to stop the bleeding. That's the first step. Figure out what that behavior is that's happening that's causing that debt to increase.
And is it true that if you closed your oldest credit card, it can hurt your credit score, or is that just a myth going on?
That's true.
That's
true. The second most important part to a credit score is the utilization. How much of the credit you have available to you are you using? So you want to make sure that if you do have credit out there, you don't have to use it. So you have a credit card, for example, that you don't use. You don't have to close it out. Keep it open. Just don't use it. You cut up the card, get rid of it, but don't use it, and that helps your credit score.
What advice do you have for people with credit cards?
You got to stay out of debt. If you can't make that payment in full each month, it's not worth having the credit card.
Okay.
If you're using credit to buy something and you're making the minimum payments, it's like paying for it 3 or 5 times over.
Oh no.
If you have a $5,000 debt on your credit card, it could take you up to 20 years to pay that off. And if you're only making minimum payments, you could be paying $15,000 when you only spent $5,000.
Right.
So if you can't make the payment in full, don't use a credit card.
And let's turn over to debt really quickly. Can you explain the different kinds and which debt people should pay off first?
Consumer debt, high interest rate debt, that's the kind of debt that you want to get away from as quickly as possible.
Okay.
The lower interest, that good debt, mortgages, for example, a lot of people still have mortgage rates that are below the inflation rate, the 3-4%. That's later. You can worry about paying that off later. You want to pay off that high interest, that expensive debt first.
And last question for you this morning, are there certain things people can do to make that debt more manageable?
You want to stay out of the problem. That's the first thing. Stay away from it.
First is don't do it.
There's some of us who are just more prone to getting into trouble with credit cards. And that's not a flaw. That's just something that we need to recognize about ourselves. So if you recognize that about yourself, avoid credit cards if you can. Just avoid them, and they're not for you. Use your debit card or pay for cash.
All right, Sherod Waite with Moneywise Wealth Management. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.